A very good morning to you. We start with the developing news from the Middle East. The Israeli military has denied a report that its tanks are less than 20 miles from Damascus. Reuters are reporting that line, citing 3 security sources. The IDF say that reports about any alleged advancement of Israeli tanks towards Damascus are false and that its troops are stationed within the buffer zone. Meanwhile, Israeli jets have continued to hit Syria with airstrikes. They're believed to be targeting Syrian military facilities following the collapse of the Assad regime 2 days ago. Early yesterday evening, the Israelis struck an air defence installation at Syria's Mediterranean port in Latakia. Then a series of strikes hit military targets overnight, including in the northeast of the country in Qamishli, where Sky News captured these pictures. Well, Israel has occupied the Golan Heights in the south of Syria since the Six-Day War in 1967. Over the weekend, it expanded its territory, taking the Syrian side of the summit of Mount Hermon in a move that the Foreign Minister Gideon Saar described as necessary to prevent an October the 7th scenario from Syria. Well, overnight, the Israelis struck major Syrian air bases housing dozens of helicopters and jets. In Damascus, the Aqaba air base was hit, as well as the Centre for Electronic Warfare near the Saida Zainab area of the capital, and the Barzeh Scientific Research Centre, which has been linked to chemical weapons production. Well, the Shinshar base near the city of Homs was also targeted. In the northeast of the country, the Qamishli air base was struck, as shown in the pictures that you've just seen taken by Sky News' cameras. Well, I'm delighted to say that we're joined now by Alex Rossi from Qamishli in the northeast of Syria. Alex, how verifiable are some of these reports, of which, of course, some of them Sky News cameras have shown, but particularly the ground incursions in the tanks?
Well, I think it's very difficult to confirm any of them, but I think it shows how chaotic and fluid the situation is. Now, I have been told by security sources here that the strikes that we witnessed last night, we saw flashes of orange, large explosions on the horizon, and secondary explosions continued for at least 30 to 40 minutes, and we'll show you exactly the reason for that in a minute. But they say that those strikes were carried out by the Israelis, and this is what we saw last night. The Qamishli regime base is 2, possibly 3 kilometres in that direction. This is one of the main roads out, and a convoy carrying ammunition and weapons was struck, and it was struck repeatedly. If you look down here, there's more trucks past that. In the back of this truck, you can see the anti-tank mines. We, of course, saw all of them exploding. Now, on the floor, all around us is unexploded ordnance and exploded ordnance, shell casings, mortars. Have a look down here. This is a rocket, a 107mm rocket. It shows when it was made, the date, 2018. Interestingly, the writing, of course, is in English. Some of the ammunition that we've seen is clearly Soviet, but the ammunition we're seeing seems to have come from all sorts of places. But this ammunition, we know, was held at the regime base. Have a look down here, and you can see more stuff. There's a mortar here that has unexploded. Over here, we'll just move here. We have to be very careful because obviously some of this stuff is still effectively live, but this is Soviet rocket-propelled grenade over here. But these explosions, we'll just turn the camera around, and you can see the convoy that was hit. Now, interestingly, some of the trucks, we'll show you this one, it's heading in this direction over here, and the truck that we showed you at the beginning when we started talking to you is heading in the other direction. Now, I've spoken to one of the drivers who told me that when he heard the first explosion, he got out of the truck, he headed, we're surrounded by open countryside here, fields, he ran into the fields and took cover. Now, he has told us that he was asked to move the ammunition by 2 men. He doesn't know who they were. He claims that he was told that these trucks were carrying, the word that he used was nutrition, but food. and he didn't know that he was carrying ammunition, and he was told to drive in the direction of Hassaga. He wasn't, he was told, he told us, given a destination. But what this kind of reflects is the lawlessness and the chaos and the kind of vacuum of power in this country after the fall of President Assad. And of course, this, huge amounts of ammunition littering the country. Now, as far as Israel is concerned, it has said it's carrying out strikes, not necessarily this one, it hasn't confirmed them, as I was saying, but it is carrying out strikes to target weapons because it does not want them to fall into the hands of malign actors. But we are expecting more airstrikes across the country over the next few days and weeks as these kind of operations are conducted. The other thing I think that's worth bearing in mind is that this ammunition was on the move when it was hit. So, and again, this is speculation, but clearly the skies above here are busy with intelligence, monitoring satellites, looking and watching for stuff that's moving. And I think that's probably why it was hit. But you can see, ammunition here absolutely everywhere. The explosions that we saw, very, very loud initial explosions when these trucks were hit, and then the secondary explosions, which went on for many, many minutes. We'll just turn the camera around here, and you can see how far this convoy goes down here. But the ground around us is littered with unexploded and exploded ordnance. But again, it really does reflect the chaos and also the danger that presents at this moment in Syria. People, of course, have been watching this very closely indeed. And whilst they have been celebrating the removal of President Assad, the fact that he has now fled the country, they're also very, very worried, very nervous about what comes next, what it means, all of this means for the future of their country.
Alex, that was exactly the topic I was going to pick up on. I mean, obviously, you're not near a huge number of people where you are, thankfully, given, of course, what has taken place there. But that initial sense of, I think it's fair to say, euphoria that we saw sweep across the country later over the weekend as Assad fell from power, is that sense, that positive sense, abating? Is there a growing sense of fear based on these explosions, these attacks, whoever is ultimately responsible for them?
Yeah, I mean, make no mistake, that euphoria, that sense of celebration is continuing. One person I spoke to yesterday in the market in Qamishli, he told me that this moment feels to him like Eid. It feels like a festival. Remember, President Assad was in power for many years. The Assad dynasty ran this country with an iron grip for decades. And it was bloodthirsty, it was cruel, it was oppressive. People would often be arrested in this country, and they would be taken to the local centre for the security forces, and they would never be seen again. They would just simply disappear and vanish. So from that point of view, people are celebrating, and they are hopeful that this will usher in a new and better future. But at the same time, when they look at the groups that have taken over the country effectively, Hayat Tahrir al-SHAM, of course, the main group, and they look at how it is comprised. It's composed. It's an Islamist group, but if you look at its genesis and trace its roots back, it was originally an Al-Qaeda affiliate. It also had links to the Islamic State. Al-Baghdadi initially was involved in it. He was the leader of Islamic State. They look at all of that and they're worried. They are alarmed about what all of that will mean and what kind of future those groups envisage for Syria. Now, here where I am, in this area, it's known as Rojava. It is an autonomous Kurdish region. And there are other complications here which people are very frightened and alarmed about as well, because it's not just domestically that the pressure is being put upon and built around the country. There's also regional powers as well. You mentioned at the beginning Israel. It wants to, of course, try and mould the future of this country in a way that is safe for Israel, or stop the threat, any threat emanating from this country towards Israel. Remember that Syria has fought 3 wars against the Israelis. The Turks are also very worried. They're worried about having well-armed Kurdish autonomous region on their doorstep. They claim that this could be used as a springboard for Kurdish separatists in Turkey. The Syrian National Army, one of the groups here, is effectively a proxy of the Turks. We are already seeing clashes between the Syrian Democratic Forces, which are the main kind of force here in Rojava, and that Turkish proxy force around Manbij and also in other areas in this region. So all of that is very alarming and has caused a great deal of worry for many people. So yes, there is that optimism, there is that celebration, but there's also very much, there's also a great sense of unease, apprehension and anxiety about what comes next.
Alex Rossi, thanks so much for that, live for us there in Syria.